slope-intercept form. This is day 2 of a 2-day lesson. Essential question: how do you rewrite an equation into slope-intercept form when it starts in standard form? Rewrite the equation in slope-intercept form, then graph. In order to be able to graph an equation, we have to have it in this form. This form is called slope-intercept form. We don't want to graph in any other form besides this one. So right now, you'll notice the difference between our example and slope-intercept form is that in slope-intercept form, x and y are on opposite sides and y is alone. In our equation, x and y are on the same side and y isn't alone. We need to get y all by itself. The way we do that is getting rid of the negative 4x. You can kind of think of this as a couple and third wheel problem. Y is our couple, negative 4x is our third wheel. It's also like a literal equation from chapter 2. The way I get rid of the negative 4x and bring it to the other side is by doing the opposite operation, which since it's negative, we are adding 4x to both sides. Negative 4 and 4 make 0. Bring down the y. Now I always write the part with the x first. So the plus 4x, that means the 4 is positive, so I'm going to write positive 4x. And then the 2, since there's a negative sign in front of it, that means the 2 is negative. Now my equation has y alone and is ready to graph. We always graph the y-intercept first, which is negative 2. So I'm going to go on my y-axis to the negative 2 and put a dot. I always do my slope, which is positive 4 second. 4 as a fraction is 4 over 1. Remember, we always want to graph our slopes as a fraction. So if I rise 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and run 1, I can make another dot. 1, 2, 3, 4, run 1. Remember, always do your rise and run from the dot you made. If you're confused about how I got the dots, this right here was my negative 2. That was my y-intercept from my equation. And then the 4 over 1, I rose 1, 2, 3, 4, ran 1. Rose 1, 2, 3, 4, ran 1. So there's how I made my triangles. All right, this equation also doesn't have y alone. And in order to graph, we need to get it alone. So I'm going to circle my 2y, because that's my couple, and I'm going to get rid of my third wheel, the 3x. Since it's positive, I'm going to subtract on both sides. 3 and negative 3 make 0. I'm going to bring down the 2y. And then again, I'm always going to put the one with the x first. So that's the negative 3. So negative 3x is going to go first, and then 6 doesn't have a sign in front of it, so that means it's positive. Now this time I have a 2 next to my y, so I'm not done yet. I have to get rid of that 2. If 2 and y are touching each other, that's the same as times, so the opposite would be divide. So my 2's are canceled, then I have y equals, and then here's the part that gets a little tricky. I always turn it into a heart, because both parts on the top of my equation need to be divided by 2. Negative 3 divided by 2, that's not a nice number, so I'm going to leave it as a fraction. 6 divided by 2 is a nice number. It's 3, so that I can divide. Now my equation is ready to graph. I'm going to graph my positive 3 first, so I'm going to go up to 3 on my y-axis and put a dot. Then I'm going to graph my negative 3 over 2 second. So from that dot, I'm going to rise negative 3, run 2. Rise negative 3, run 2. Rise negative 3, run 2. Y isn't alone, so I'm going to draw my train tracks. Notice this time our y is negative. That is important. We want to make sure we don't forget that. 3 is negative. 4x is positive, so to get rid of it and bring it on the other side, I'm going to subtract it. 4 and negative 4 make 0. Bring down the negative 3y. Again, I'm going to put the x first, which is negative 4x. 12 doesn't have anything in front of it, so it means it's positive. Now I've got to get rid of the negative 3 in front of the y. Negative 3y is the same as negative 3 times y. So divide both sides by negative 3. And then this is where I do the heart. Negative 4 over negative 3. It doesn't make a nice number if I divide it, but I do know that a negative over a negative makes a positive. So I'm going to put a positive 4/3 x. 12 divided by negative 3 is negative 4. This equation is ready to graph. I'm going to graph the negative 4 first. Negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4. Then I'm going to rise 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, run 3. Rise 4, run 3. (5x minus y equals negative 2). Draw my train tracks. I want y alone again, but notice there's no number in front of y, but there is a negative sign. Don't lose the negative sign. 5x, to get rid of it, it's positive, so I'm going to subtract it on both sides. These make 0. Bring down my negative y. Put my x in front, which is a negative 5. Then put the negative 2. Now this time we are not done. If you think about what number goes in front of a variable, if nothing's there, it's a 1. So to get rid of that negative 1, I have to divide everything by negative 1. So again, I will make my heart. Negative 5 divided by negative 1 is positive 5. Negative 2 divided by negative 1 is positive 2. Graph my 2 first on my y-axis, put my dot. 5 as a fraction is 5 over 1. Rise 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, run 1. If you ever need to make another dot, you can always go backwards. So I can think to myself, okay, where would my dot be in this area if I needed to add another one? Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, run 1. I could make another dot right there. So you can always go backwards. You can rise, negative 5, run negative 1. X minus 3y equals negative 9. Draw my train tracks. Circle my negative 3y. Minus x on both sides. Remember that's the same as 1x if that helps you. Bring down the negative 3y. Negative x minus 9. Divide both sides by negative 3. Make my heart. Negative x over negative 3 is like negative 1 over negative 3, so that'd be a positive 1/3 x. And then negative 9 divided by negative 3 is positive 3. If putting that 1 there helps you, go for it. First dot goes on the 3. Rise 1, run 3. Rise 1, run 3. Rise 1, run 3. That time I made 4 dots. Summary. Your homework for this lesson is pages 217 through 218, numbers 5 through 8, and 23 through 28.